lots of celebrities, lots of royalty, lots of politics. I started managing at Bungalow 8. I mean, I was doing all of the VIP parties in the back of Lot 61. She said, take the job, take the money, and send me their best clients. And he was like the bad cop. I was like the good cop. You know, he would get in fights, he would yell at people and call them douchebags and pull the whole, like, what are you wearing bullshit. And I'd be off to the side, like, listen, don't take it so seriously. Whoever was coming to New York was coming into Bungalow 8. Yeah. It was the only place they wanted to go.
Hey there, it's me, Roxy Cottontail. You might know me as a DJ, artist, designer, and New York City party promoter, or from my bunny logo. I'm putting all that on the table and writing about the years that transformed music and the New York City scene. I've interviewed 250 friends and colleagues I admire. I ask all and reveal all. Please join me and the Tales to rediscover the 90s and the Y2K magical landscape of music, art, technology, and streetwear. This is Roxy's Tales.
Okay, so for the record, why don't you tell me who you are?
I'm Errickson Wilcox. I'm friends with Roxy.
How did you get started in New York nightlife?
Well, I was always involved in nightlife since I was like 14 years old. I was from Northern Virginia, and Trax was the big club in DC. And I used to go sneak into Trax when I was 14, 15, and 16.
What years was this?
This was 1986, 87. So I used to sneak into Trax because it was the only place that people were like gay and that they were like dancing, and it was like a free space, you know? And at 14, it was like the bomb to me to be just around other gay people. So I was drawn into clubs that way. And I was like part of the whole club kid movement that was happening. You know, I finished high school and I went to VCU here in Richmond, Virginia. And there was a bunch of gay clubs here. There was like Rose Alley and Christopher's and Fielding's and the Pyramid. And I was still, you know, going out. It was still like my social thing. And so when I got to New York, clubs, I had been clubbing for quite some time.
What year did you get to New York?
94.
My guest this week on Roxy's Tales is Errickson Wilcox, a doorman extraordinaire and party host who stood at the front lines of New York City nightlife. From iconic rooms like Marquee and Bungalow 8, Errickson witnessed and helped shape the evolution of club culture in the late 90s into the Y2K era. As an early adapter, he understood that the door wasn't about exclusion, but intention, curating energy, building trust, and creating a community before that word was everywhere. This is the story of how the door is a starting point of curation. Without further ado, Errickson Wilcox.
I moved to New York to be an actor and work in theater and work in film. And so I was waiting tables first, but I was still going out to like the clubs that were there at the time, which was like Club USA and the Bank and a lot of the gay clubs, like Splash. I worked in restaurants for a while I was doing plays. I was rehearsing plays and working in restaurants. And then I'd done a play for a few months and I wasn't working in restaurants. And I didn't want to go back to restaurants because I had just been acting and I was like, you know, I didn't want to go back to waiting tables. So I got a job working at Lot 61 as a cocktail boy. And this is before bottle service. Like bottle service hadn't really happened yet. Lot 61 brought in a lot of that bottle service momentum. And we had like film premieres and we had like the Monday night hip hop party. And it was just easier to drop bottles on tables for events and things. Like for .com businesses were pretty popular at the time. And so basically they had bought the booze, they bought the space, and there was like a lot of people. So it was just much easier to just drop the bottles and serve at the tables than people moving up.
What year would that have been?
1998. By 2001, she had already started Bungalow 8, I guess. And I started managing at Bungalow 8. I mean, I was doing all of the like the VIP parties in the back of Lot 61, which was like a long table. It was like a wine room, basically. And I was waiting on like Depeche Mode and, you know, Sean Penn and Bruce Willis, all of the celebrities of the day that were hanging with Amy Sacco. And I had the back room. So I was, dealing with Sting and, just whoever was coming in town that night for New York City. And while I was doing that, I was still acting. I was working at Three-Legged Dog Theater Company. And that was really my motivation. The nightlife was where I could make a lot of money. I mean, we would make $600 to $1,000 a night and, cash. So it allowed me to not have to work as much. But of course, you started working in the nightlife, the more you worked, the more you worked. It was just, synonymous with it. And during that time period, I also got involved with Camille Becerra and Darius, and we started doing parties all over the city. Playhouse, which was across from Lot 61. We did these castle parties up in Harlem. Then Bungalow 8 was opening. And so I started hosting their Sunday nights bingo nights with Lelaine. She was hosting the bingo, and then I came in and started calling the balls for the bingo because I was a little bit more social. And I guess she had, I don't know what her history was prior, but she was in fashion, and so she knew a lot of people. And so I guess Amy had, I don't know how it turned out, but Amy had gotten her on, and then I was managing Sundays anyway. So then I started just calling the balls, and then I kind of took over the game because she didn't want to do it anymore.
So with Lot 61, you mentioned the Monday night was hip hop night.
Yeah.
Was that with Jusky?
Jusky and Richie, Kiva and Sean. Yeah, that was their party. Because then Tuesday, Wednesday, through the rest of the week.
What were the other nights? Was there?
We had a lot of film premieres, a lot of gallery parties, because it was a gallery restaurant as well.
Okay, so then you start managing at Bungalow 8 when that opens.
Yeah, Bungalow 8.
You're also hosting bingo night on Sundays.
And I'm hosting bingo night. And I was with the band with Camille and Darius, we performed at Lot 61. Amy gave us a chance to perform there, and we had a fucking amazing night. It was great. And Camille was pregnant, and she was barefoot, and we were doing electronic music, with Paloma. So it was a really great night for us, and Amy was great to let us perform there.
What were the regular nights at Bungalow 8?
There was never a regular night.
There wasn't.
No, every night was something different. It was like whoever was in town, truthfully, it was like you could look on the news and see what was happening, and that's what would be happening at Bungalow 8 that night, because whoever was coming to New York was coming into Bungalow 8. Yeah. It was the only place they wanted to go.
I think of Bungalow 8 and what I'm sharing culturally is very similar to like what Beatrice Inn represented with Paul Sevigny, where it was like it's a different style, different vibe. But culturally, it became a shift in nightlife. Even maybe with Lot 61, it could begin with like you mentioned, like the bottle service and like a different night every night of the week. I think it's just culturally, it was such a shift in, I guess, kind of like that celebrity clientele.
Yeah. Lots of celebrities, lots of royalty, lots of politics. Sex and the City was shooting there. They were putting that in the episode of Sex and the City. It was definitely on the pulse of what was extremely current. Yeah. And a lot of actors, a lot of agents coming with their actors to show off their actors in that space. But then it was also all the people who ran New York were coming in there. People who, like, I met Noah Tepperberg and Jason Strauss there, and they asked me to come over to Bungalow 8. Now I'm going to give you this story.
Okay.
And this, I think, sums up Amy Sacco as well. But I had been doing the door for about a year at Bungalow 8, because I started doing the door there when, because Armin was doing the door there every night. Mm-hmm. And then Disco was the security guard, and he was kind of covering for Armin. But she needed somebody else to do the door when Armin couldn't do it, because he was also trying to act and get his career going. So I started covering for Armin, and usually it was nights when Daryl was working, because I've known Daryl since high school. One night, Jason and Noah contacted me and said, we're opening up a club, a big mega club around the corner from Bungalow 8, and we want you to do the door. for it. And I said, well, let me get back to you. And I went to Amy and I said, do you know these guys? You know, Noah and Jason. She's like, yeah, they're promoters. They're opening up this club. She's like around the corner. She wasn't happy about it, trust me, because it was going to bring like mega people to that corner where she was trying to have a celebrity private place, right? And so I told her that they wanted me to come and do the door. And she said, well, how much are they offering? And I told her, which was about $500 a night for, you know, 3 or 4 hours or whatever. She said, take the job, take the money, and send me their best clients.
I love it.
And I still hung out at Bungalow. Like I still covered at Bungalow. I still did the bingo at Bungalow, but I was doing the door over at Marquee.
2003 Marquee opens.
Yes, 2003.
Okay. And how long were you at the door there?
Almost 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like 4.5 years or something. It was a very long time, but it didn't seem like it at the time. But it was a very long time. And, you know, Marquee was a whole other slew. It was like working at the amusement park after I'd worked in the VIP club, you know what I mean? It was like, we were still getting the celebrities. Nightlife had become sort of commercialized through Marquee. You know, it was cookie cutter music and bottle service. Everything was kind of, by that point, they were opening up a place that was textbook by that point. In between Lot 61 and Bungalow 8, I had worked at Lotus as well. And Lotus was kind of like the cookie cutter nightclub situation, but it was brighter. It was more of like a dinner place. There was a bunch of places because I would be asked to do the door for openings, right? So I would do the opening of Britney Spears restaurant, you know, and then I would do the opening for a store in the meatpacking district who was like a client of somebody who used to come to the club, and they had a jeans company. I don't remember what they were called, but it was like I was doing the door. I was opening for the Buddha Bar. I worked at the Buddha Bar for a little bit. They all kind of blended in. Once I started working at Marquee, I was working like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night or something, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night or something like that. And then I would be opening up other places, just doing the door for all these places. Like Greenhouse, I did the door at Greenhouse for a while. And, you know, I basically worked someplace for like a few months, and then another place would ask me to come. And so then I would go over there because there's only weekends kind of thing.
I mean, I know that I met you at the door probably of Marquee, but I don't remember when.
I don't remember anything from Marquee because it was thousands of people every night. And all they wanted to do was get in. And I had lines of people. I had 2 or 3 lines of people this way, 2 or 3 lines of people this way. And then I'd have to pull in the promoters' lines from the sides. And I had a headset on, and of course a bottle of champagne. And it was just like, go, go, okay, count to 20, boom, boom, boom. And I was working with, who was my door partner? Was, right? So I was working with Was the whole time. And he was like the bad cop. I was like the good cop. You know, he would get in fights, he would yell at people and call them douchebags and pull the whole, like, what are you wearing bullshit. And I'd be off to the side, like, listen, don't take it so seriously. You know, here, have a drink ticket and go through the back door. You know, like I was always like the diffuser of the thing. And I think that's one of the things why I stayed there so long was, you know, I believe what Noah and Jason liked about me was that I was just nice to people. You know, I mean, I could be a straight face, and there's obviously the crazy people running around the streets or whatever, and I just like ignore them. But I was basically nice. You know, I wasn't a mean door person. I wasn't a cunt. I was basically like, this guy's going to be the asshole, and I'm just going to try and enjoy myself and try to get in as many people as I can, because really it was about that, was getting in, yes, the right people, but at that club, at that state of that enormity, you know, you could pull filler, and there was plenty of filler.
Cool. So where else were you going? Like, were you going to APT?
Always APT on Sundays. If if I could. Usually Sundays was a night that was a big party night. APT was one of my favorite hangouts. Granted, we were always a mess, or everybody else was always a mess, I should say. I never really I was never a big drinker, but I didn't mind having a drink, but it wasn't like, it was more fun. It was more champagne, and it was more, I wasn't like, and I was drinking champagne at the door. So I wasn't really heavy into the drugs or anything. I wasn't like hanging with a seriously drug crowd. I was always with the people who were working in clubs and nightclubs. I worked at Limelight at some point. I was cocktailing. It was Christmas. I was trying to make extra money for Christmas. I don't remember if it was it was before Marquee. So it had to have been before Bungalow 8 opened.
2000-ish.
Maybe like 2000-ish. Yeah, maybe like 2000 before I came back from Miami.
And the tunnel too.
And the tunnel, yeah.
What were the nights like when you were working at the tunnel and the Limelight?
They were fine because, when you're working in the club, as you know, it's okay. You're having a good time, but you're not having like the party time, and you're on alert, and you're trying to make money, and then you're going up into the room and you're counting out your drawer, and it's it was very, they dealt with club kids for decades, so it was all professional. So for me, it was like a job. Like I would come in and I would come out, and I didn't really care about the people. I wasn't really outfit oriented. I wasn't in the costumey stuff. I was never really costumey, so none of that stuff really impressed me too much. But I was there for money, and that was my goal. And I'd seen clubs, I'd been to clubs, I'd done clubs. So it wasn't, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna work, then I might as well try to work in a big club.
Where were you living too? Was it always Tribeca?
I was always in Tribeca. I moved to Tribeca in 98, like right around the same time I started working at Lot 61. I was originally living in Gramercy area on 26th Street. When I first moved to New York, I moved to Gramercy with a friend of mine from Virginia who I went to high school with, and she was going to NYU. And I moved in with her, and I lived there for 3 years. And while I was there, I was doing plays with her, and I was not involved in working in nightlife at all. And then after the third year, when our lease went up, I moved out to Staten Island because I was shooting a lot of like independent film at the time was really popular. So I was shooting like a bunch of these independent films. And I met this girl on a set, and she lived on Staten Island. I'd never heard of Staten Island before. And she said, oh, we take a boat and it's right on the water and blah, blah. And I was like, oh, this sounds great. So I went with her from the shoot because I was looking for a place, and went to go look at it. And it was amazing. It was summertime. We were on the ferry. I'd never even been in that part of New York before, part of the city. And we get to Staten Island, and it's a brand new building, and it's on the water, and it's like beautiful. And I was like, it was cheap. It was like $400 for like 30-foot ceiling bedroom, like just amazing. And I was like, yeah, let's take it. I'm 21, let's, 22, then like, let's do it. Summer became winter. And I was like, this is hell on earth to get from Manhattan to Staten Island. And if you miss the ferry, you have to wait. You fall asleep on the ferry. It takes you back to the city. You get off the ferry. It's nothing but wind. It was
cold wind too.
Horrible. It was horrible. So when I got the job at Lot 61, I met a guy there and a girl there, and they were looking for a place too. And I had to get another apartment. And so we decided to get a place together. Well, he knew of this loft in Tribeca that his sister was living at. And so we went to go look at the loft, and we were like, yeah, let's take it. This is amazing. Never really been to Tribeca, really.
Yeah.
Never really heard of Tribeca. Tribeca wasn't a big name at that time. And, but it was a loft. It was above a strip club called the Baby Doll Lounge. And the Baby Doll Lounge had been there since the 60s. And I was like, and I thought we were like kind of in the middle of nowhere, Manhattan, truthfully. Like, I thought it was cool that we were above a strip club, and the hotel, the Tribeca Grand hadn't been built yet. It was just a loft, So I felt like we were like isolated, and I was in the loft for 15 years. So from the time I was 20 and 25 until I was 40, I lived at the loft in Tribeca. Yeah,
The loft was amazing.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was.
But it's funny, like when you think about experiencing that for the first time and like knowing that it's amazing, but then, you know, as we all saw the commercialization of New York happen.
Yeah, the hotel started to build, then the strip club was taken out, and then the restaurant came in. And it was like, you know, we used to sit on the fire escape and drink beer and chill out all day. And then it just became we're on Highlighter. Like it was a nice party space. We could hang out and all of our friends could come over and after hours and everything like that. And it became like a little grocery store in the corner and, you know, a hotel. And it was just like all of a sudden you go on the fire escape and everybody can see you, you know, as opposed to like when I first got there, I thought we were like anonymous.
Wow.
You know?
You were.
Yeah.
So you were there for 9/11.
Oh yeah.
And you at that time you were also working. Were you working at Lotus then?
I was bartending at Sway.
What?
I was bartending at Sway while that was happening and getting Bungalow 8 ready, right? Because it was 2000 to 2001. And then that September by 2001, Bungalow 8 had started and Paloma was born. She was 6 months old and 9/11 happens, right? It's fashion week. It's a beautiful day. We'd been up all night at the Galaxy Cafe in Union Square, having, you know, THC French fries or whatever. And it was such a beautiful night that I decided to walk all the way from 14th Street down Broadway to Tribeca because it was such a gorgeous night. I got in probably around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I felt crashed in my bed. And then the next thing I know, Darius comes in my room holding the baby, and he says, "The towers are on fire, grab your camera." Because I had a VHS video camera. And, you know, Darius is sort of a jokester, but I could tell immediately in his face and holding his baby that there was something fucking going down. So I grab my camera and I go to the window and I just start to record. The 2 towers were on fire by this point. And people are rushing around the streets, but it was actually a very calm, eerie feeling because people, they were burning, but nobody knew what to do. And everybody kept saying like, how are they going to put that out? And, you know, Camille was kind of rushing around packing bags and putting food and stuff. And we were like, should we leave? Should we go? Should we just stay here? I mean, we're on the 2nd floor. So can we even get to New Jersey where they're from? Or can we get out of the city? You know, because there was just, at this point, all of the people started milling from the fire with broken arms or, you know, dust or whatever. And we saw them, you know, coming up and I'm shooting the whole thing, but can't take my camera off the burning towers, right? So the first tower falls, thousands of people start coming from the downtown area. And we get a phone call from our friends in Soho. Phones were working, you know, on how they were. And they invited us to come stay there because we were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've got the baby, you know, if we can't just, and I was like, we're safe here. Let's just stay here until, you know, things die down. But they're like, if we don't leave, we'll never get out. So we packed backpacks and we started walking to Soho, but we couldn't get through the crowd from where we were. So we walked over to Broadway to go up because the crowd had started moving towards the West Side Highway. And so we kind of went into the city to go up. And as we were walking up Broadway, I heard this roar of happening behind me. And I turn around and I see the other building mushroom behind the other buildings. Wow. And everybody on the street was like, what the fuck is going on? You know, everybody, it was so quiet. It was so quiet. It was like walking away from a death scene. You know, it was like knowing how many people just died or how many people just got hurt. And you're like just feet away from the situation kind of thing. So we got into Soho. we stayed there the night. That's when I finally contacted my family. They went to Jersey to take Paloma to Jersey the next day. I went back down to the loft. The smell was horrific. And I couldn't stay there because it was just toxic. So my friend came, she called me and she said, meet me on the West Side Highway in your rollerblades. Let's stay on wheels. So so we rollerbladed to the West Side Highway. And that's when all the trucks started coming, the big, huge record drivers and everything coming in to clean up. And I mean, we are like this big and these trucks are like this big. I've never seen wheels this enormous in my entire life. It was incredible. And so we started cheering them on. And then that became like, literally, we were one of the first 10 people there making signs out of cardboard. And then by the end of the day, it was thousands of people cheering on the squad. Then I ended up staying with some friends that night in Chelsea with my friend. We stayed with them. And then the next day, I ended up trying to go give blood. And they couldn't take blood because they had plenty of blood. So they gave me this booklet that basically had how to start a, safe place kind of thing. So I went into this elementary school and there was like a few other people there sitting in the cafeteria, and I put the book down and I said, okay, we have to set this up as a place for the firefighters to come and sleep and eat and rest. And so we set up the gymnasium with blankets, and all the kids had written letters and had like gift bags, and we put like, every friend from the neighborhood came and donated, and we set up all of these sleeping areas, massage areas, food areas. We cooked a bunch of burgers, and we had a Humvee, so we put all the food in the Humvee, and the Humvee would send it down to ground zero, and then they'd come back, and then we'd fill it up again and send it down. And this went on for about a week, about 10 days, living in this elementary school, with a bunch of other people that I'd never met before.
It was just so much trauma. It's just beautiful that you were involved in. Another person that I interviewed who was a bartender at Passerby, he was volunteering too. He was like delivering whatever he could. And
the reality was they weren't coming to our refuge because they didn't have time to, and then like we had a few that came, but mostly it's because they had been hurt or they couldn't go back in. So they just came there. But it was, but to wrap that story up, I finally, when we could leave, we went to Queens. We took a taxi to Queens to my friend Troy's place. I remember like leaving the city and going into Queens. And I don't think I've ever been to Queens before this. And just thinking like, the world has moved on, but we hadn't, because we'd been stuck in this situation a little bit. And so when we got into Queens, I thought it was really odd how life was just kind of a little bit normal. I felt a little shell shocked, I guess.
Yeah.
But my friend Troy was like, I didn't want to tell you this, but I ordered Wonder Woman on VHS, and it may have been delivered while we were away. He said this to me in the cab on the way over there. And I was like, oh my God, let's hope Wonder Woman is there, because all I want to do is watch Wonder Woman right now. So we get there, we picked up a whole pizza, like a big, large pizza, on our way to the house. And lo and behold, Wonder Woman is sitting right there at the door that's probably been sitting there for an entire week. We go in, we have pizza, and we watch Wonder Woman. And it was like America. You know what I mean? It was like the return to normalcy. It's that little thing of like watching something, red, white, and blue, Linda Carter, running around in her little bathing suit, eating pizza. And all of a sudden, it was like the first normal moment of like my childhood and also like my new reality. And it just felt like that we were going to be okay.
Yeah. Wow.
A lot happened in that time period. I'm realizing, talking to you, like 97 to 2001 was like jam-packed.
Yeah.
Jam-packed every night, something. I love you, girl.
I love you. Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for hopping by. That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and stalk. Bounce, little kitty.